She drunkenly texted her CEO about a sexy billionaire. His smile the next morning said it all. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to our main character. The night it happened, the city hummed with that Friday night electricity, the kind that makes every cab honk louder and every bar glow warmer than usual. Inside one of those bars, under a neon sign that flickered like it was half asleep, Emily Carter tilted back the last inches of her cranberry vodka and felt the heat bloom across her cheeks. She wasn't the type to drink much, but after a 60-hour workweek and a rejected proposal that had taken her 3 months to build, the alcohol tasted a little too much like relief. Her coworkers were still laughing at a table behind her, but their voices blurred as she pulled out her phone. Her vision softened at the edges. She meant to text her best friend. She meant to vent. She meant to rant about that insanely handsome billionaire philanthropist she had been low-key obsessed with ever since he appeared on a podcast talking about kindness like it was a business strategy. Instead, her thumb tapped the wrong contact. Ugh, he's so unfairly sexy, she typed, squinting as the letters drifted on the screen. Like who gave him the right? If he asked me to ruin my life, I'd be like, yes, sir, absolutely, here's the pen. She giggled into her glass, unaware she had just sent it to Ethan Hale, her CEO. And don't even get me started on that smile, she typed again. God, it's like it should be illegal in at least 12 states. She hit send. A second later, the phone buzzed, not with a reply, but with the brutal clarity of sobriety crashing into her lungs. Ethan Hale, her boss, her stone-faced, terrifyingly brilliant, emotionally unreadable CEO. She had just sent him a drunk thirst essay about a billionaire. A billionaire Ethan happened to know. A billionaire Ethan happened to regularly appear in Forbes lists with. Her stomach flipped. The bar blurred. She reread the messages, each line worse than the last. For a moment she debated throwing her phone into traffic, or maybe just throwing herself in front of it. But she didn't unsend them. She didn't apologize. She just froze. That night, as she lay in bed staring at her ceiling fan spinning like it was mocking her, her mind replayed every word she'd typed, each one puncturing her like a slow-motion car crash. Ethan never responded, not even a single dot bubble. The silence was louder than any reprimand. By sunrise her hangover was vicious. Her heartbeat pulsed behind her eyes as she dragged herself into the office, praying he hadn't seen it, praying he had slept early, praying the universe would just delete last night from existence. But when she stepped out of the elevator, everything felt too bright, too quiet, too magnified. And then he appeared, walking down the hallway in his tailored charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, and that unreadable expression that employees whispered about in break rooms. He slowed when he saw her. And for the first time since she'd worked there, Ethan Hale smiled. Not a small smile. Not a polite smile. A knowing smile. The kind that curled at the corner of his mouth like he was holding a secret he had no intention of returning. Her pulse skidded. Her breath caught. His eyes flicked, just once, to the phone in her hand. Then back to her. Good morning, Emily, he said, his voice low, warm, and way too amused. And right then she knew. He had read every single word. And he wasn't going to let her forget it. Emily stood frozen in that hallway, every nerve in her body buzzing, as Ethan Hale's knowing smile faded into the soft click of his office door, closing behind him. She could not breathe. She could not think. All she could hear was the pounding of her own heart and the echo of his voice saying, "Good morning, Emily," like it was some kind of private joke between them. The rest of the morning moved in a haze. Her coworkers chatted around her, but their voices were muted, like they were speaking from inside an aquarium. Every time footsteps approached, she flinched, terrified it was him coming to call her into his office to fire her for unprofessional conduct. But no summons came. Instead, the day rolled forward with cruel normalcy, until an alert popped up on her laptop. Meeting at 2 p.m., strategy session, Hale, E. Her stomach dropped straight to the floor. She reread it 3 times. It was the first time she had ever been invited to one of his private planning sessions. She wanted it to be a mistake, But Ethan Hale did not make mistakes. At 1:59 p.m., she stood outside his office door, palms damp, throat tight. She knocked softly. "Come in," he said, and his voice sounded the same as always, calm and unreadable, except now she could hear something else underneath it, something almost amused. She stepped inside. He was leaning over the glass conference table, sleeves rolled up, studying a spread of documents. When he looked up at her, the corner of his mouth tugged upward, just slightly, like he was trying very hard not to laugh. "Have a seat, Emily," he said. Her legs carried her forward even though her brain screamed to run. She sat across from him, praying he would not mention those messages. But the universe was not kind to her. The moment she opened her notebook, he spoke. "So," he began casually, "long night?" Her blood turned to steam. "Ah, yes. No. I was just texting." He finished for her, tapping his pen lightly on the table. Very enthusiastically. She wanted to evaporate. Her soul attempted to escape her body. She stammered, "Sir, I am so incredibly sorry. I did not intend." He held up a hand. "Relax. I am not upset." That almost made it worse. He leaned back in his chair, studying her like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve. "May I ask," he said, voice smooth, "exactly which billionaire you were referring to?" Emily's mouth fell open. "Sir, please, can we not discuss this? It was inappropriate. I should not have said any of that." "You said a great deal," he noted, and there was a glimmer in his eye that made her heart sprint. "In very descriptive detail." She pressed her hands to her cheeks, wishing the floor would swallow her whole. But then something unexpected happened. He slid a folder across the table toward her. "Look at this," he said. She blinked, confused, then opened it. Her breath caught. Inside were printed pages from her personal notebook. Her sketches, her marketing concepts, her pitch ideas she had never shown anyone because she thought they were not good enough. "Where did you get these?" she whispered. "You left it in the conference room last week," he said. "I picked it up." She felt dizzy. "I thought I lost it." "No," he said quietly. "I read it." She looked up sharply, but Ethan was not smiling now. His expression was serious, focused, almost proud. "You have good ideas, Emily. Better than some of our senior strategists," he said. "And I want you to develop these further." Her heartbeat stuttered. "Me? Yes. Unless you think this sexy billionaire you were texting about would do a better job." Her face flamed again. "Sir, Emily," he interrupted gently. "I am teasing you, not punishing you." That disarmed her completely. He exhaled, drumming his fingers once on the table before speaking again. "I asked you here today because I want you to take the lead on the Evergreen project. It is one of our major campaigns this quarter. I think you can handle it." She stared at him, stunned. "Why me?" Ethan's eyes softened just slightly. "Because you are talented. Because you work harder than you think I notice. And because you were brave enough to think creatively, even when no one asked you to." She swallowed hard. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Not in any job. Not in her entire life. "So," he said, leaning forward, "can you do it?" She nodded slowly, still overwhelmed. "Yes, sir. I can." He nodded once, satisfied. But then his gaze dipped to her phone on the table, and a slow smile spread across his face. "Good. And Emily, next time you decide to text a CEO in the middle of the night," she froze. "Yes. At least make sure you spell the word illegal correctly." Her jaw dropped. He stood, gathering his papers. Meeting adjourned. And as she sat there, mortified and exhilarated all at once, one thing became painfully clear. He was not letting this go. And the worst part? A tiny part of her did not want him to. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur as Emily replayed every word of their meeting in her head, trying to decide which part was more overwhelming. The humiliation of her drunk messages, the unbelievable fact that Ethan Hale had read her notebook, or the even more unbelievable fact that he believed in her enough to give her the Evergreen project. By the time she left the office that evening, the sky outside was tinted pink and gold, the kind of sunset that usually made her pause on the sidewalk and breathe for a moment. But today, she did not pause. She walked fast, almost too fast, as if the world could see the chaos inside her chest. When she finally reached her small apartment, she collapsed onto her couch and let out a long breath she had been holding all day. She covered her face with both hands. "What is happening?" she whispered to herself. She had gone from mortified to overwhelmed to strangely thrilled in less than 12 hours. Ethan Hale had that effect on people, she supposed. She opened her laptop again, staring at the folder he had given her. It still did not feel real. Someone like Ethan noticing someone like her felt like a glitch in the universe, like two worlds that were never meant to collide suddenly smashing into each other. She flipped through her notes, rereading the comments he had written in the margins. They were sharp, insightful, and surprisingly encouraging. He had taken her random scribbles and treated them like they were worth something. That alone made her chest ache in a way she could not explain. The next morning she arrived at the office earlier than usual, driven by a blend of fear and adrenaline. She wanted to show him that he had not misjudged her, that she was worthy of the trust he had given her. She set up in one of the smaller conference rooms and worked non-stop until the clock hit 9, when she heard footsteps at the door. She looked up. Ethan stood there, holding 2 coffees. "You beat everyone in," he said, sounding faintly impressed. "I figured you would be here early, so I brought this." He placed a cup beside her hand. She blinked. "For me? Unless there is another Emily in this room," he said with a straight face. She felt heat bloom in her cheeks. "Thank you, sir." He nodded, then glanced at the spread of papers across the table. "You have been busy." She straightened slightly, nerves tightening. "I wanted to get a head start. I made a few adjustments to the customer storyline, and I drafted 3 directions for the visual concept." He picked up the first page, scanned it, then raised an eyebrow. "This is good," he said. "Very good." She exhaled in relief. But then he looked at her, really looked at her, and something shifted in the air. Not inappropriate, not crossing boundaries, but something warmer than before. Something curious, something aware. "You know," he said quietly, "I almost texted you back that night." Her breath stopped. "Why did you not?" His expression flickered like he was choosing his words carefully. "Because I could tell you were not texting the person you thought you were texting," he said. "And because I suspected you would regret it in the morning." She covered her eyes with her hand. "I regretted it immediately," she groaned. "No," he said. "You regretted sending it to me. I doubt you regretted saying it." She froze. His tone was calm, factual, but the way he watched her made her heartbeat quicken. She tried to pivot. "It was just a stupid drunk message. I did not mean anything." "Sure," he said, in a tone that suggested he did not believe a single word she had just spoken. Before she could respond, someone knocked on the open door. It was Marissa from operations, holding a stack of folders. "Sir, they need your signature on these before the 10 o'clock call." Ethan nodded and took the paperwork, but before stepping away, he looked back at Emily. "We will continue this later," he said. The way he said it made every nerve in her spine sit up straight. For the rest of the morning, Emily tried to focus on the Evergreen project, but her mind kept replaying the moment when he admitted he almost texted her back. What would he have said? Would it have been professional? Teasing? Something else entirely? Her thoughts spiraled until noon, when her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from him. "Conference room 3. Bring your concepts." Her pulse skidded. She gathered her materials and hurried down the hall. When she entered, Ethan was already there, leaning against the table with his arms crossed. He watched her walk in with an expression that made her stomach flip. "Close the door," he said softly. She did, and she had no idea that what he would say next would change everything she thought she knew about him. Emily closed the door behind her, feeling it click softly, sealing her inside the quiet conference room with Ethan. He stood there, not with his usual corporate detachment, but with a focused intensity that made her pulse stumble. His arms were crossed, his eyes sharper than the morning light filtering through the glass walls. For a moment, neither of them spoke. She clutched her folders against her chest, suddenly aware of how loud her breathing sounded in the stillness. Finally, Ethan exhaled, uncrossing his arms, and his voice lowered into something calm, but undeniably personal. "Emily," he said, "there is something I need to address before we talk about the project." Her stomach twisted. She forced herself to nod. "Yes, sir." He studied her for a moment, and his expression softened in a way that made her knees tense and her breath catch. "You are uncomfortable around me now," he said, "and I want to know why." Her eyes widened. She had not expected that. She shook her head quickly. "I am not uncomfortable. I am just embarrassed. Because of the messages." "Yes," she whispered. He nodded once, slowly. Then he walked toward her, not too close, but close enough that she could smell the faint scent of cedar and something warm beneath it. "Emily, I want you to hear this clearly," he said. I do not think less of you. I am not mocking you. And you are not in trouble. Her chest tightened with relief she did not even know she needed. But he was not finished. If anything, he continued, your honesty that night told me more about you than months of working together. Her eyes flicked up in confusion. Sir, I was drunk. People who are drunk tend to tell the truth, he replied simply. Her face heated. She scrambled to find logic. I was talking about another billionaire, not you. The corner of his mouth tugged upward, that infuriating almost smile returning. I know who you were talking about, he said, but that is not the point. His tone shifted, deepening. The point is that you have spent months shrinking yourself in this company, thinking no one notices you. But I do. I have. Her breath stilled. He stepped back finally, giving her space again, but his words lingered, electric in the air. Now, he said, clearing his throat, let us talk about your concepts. She swallowed, grateful for the pivot even though her heartbeat still trembled. She laid out her sketches and proposals on the table, her hands slightly unsteady. Ethan moved closer, leaning over the table beside her. Walk me through your vision, he said. She explained each direction she had prepared, her voice gaining strength as she spoke about things she truly understood. She pointed out color palettes, narrative arcs, customer psychology, and emotional triggers behind each campaign direction. Ethan listened without interruption, occasionally nodding, occasionally glancing at her with a look that made her feel seen in a way she had never experienced in her career. When she finished, he tapped one of the pages lightly. This one, he said. The community angle. The human focus. That is your strongest concept. A spark lit behind her ribs. You think so? I know so, he answered. You have a natural instinct for emotional storytelling. Exactly what this project needs. She exhaled slowly, not realizing she had been holding her breath. He watched her in that quiet moment, his expression softening again. Emily, he said gently, you need to trust that you belong in rooms like this. Her eyes stung, a surprising emotion welling up. I am trying, she whispered. Good, he said, because I want you to present this direction to the board next Thursday. She jerked back as if the air had been punched out of her lungs. Me? Present? To the board? Yes, Ethan said calmly. You created this concept. You understand it better than anyone. Sir, I have never done anything like that. Then it is time you start. She stared at him, speechless. He held her gaze for a long moment, then added quietly, and I will be there with you. Something inside her cracked open at those words, a mixture of gratitude and fear, and something warmer that she did not dare name. Before she could respond, Ethan gathered the papers and handed them back to her. We will rehearse together, he said, starting tomorrow morning. She nodded slowly, her heart still tumbling in her chest. As she reached for the door to leave, he spoke again, his voice lower than before. Emily. She turned. Yes, sir. His eyes held hers with an intensity that made her knees weaken. Next Thursday will change things for you, he said. More than you realize. She swallowed hard. In a good way? His lips curved. That depends, he murmured, on how honest you are ready to be. Her heart stopped, and as she stepped out of the room, she had no idea that honesty was about to become the most dangerous thing between them. The next few days felt like a blur to Emily, as if time itself had decided to speed up, pushing her towards something she could barely grasp. Each morning, she woke with a mix of excitement and dread. Excited because Ethan had believed in her enough to let her lead the Evergreen project, but terrified because the board meeting loomed closer. She spent hours working on her presentation, her notes, rehearsing every line, every gesture. The more she practiced, the more she realized how much she had to prove. To Ethan, to herself, but mostly to the voice inside her that had always told her she wasn't good enough for this life, for this kind of success. Thursday morning arrived, and she could barely stomach the coffee she drank. She pulled on a professional suit, the same one she wore for important meetings, but today it felt heavier, almost suffocating. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears as she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair for what felt like the 1000th time. The same questions flooded her mind. What if she messed up? What if she froze? What if the board saw her as nothing more than a mistake, a fluke who got lucky with one good idea? She shook her head, trying to push the thoughts away. She had done everything she could to prepare. Now it was time to walk into that room and own it. When she arrived at the office, she barely registered the faces of her coworkers as she passed them. Her mind was focused solely on the presentation, on the upcoming moment when she would have to stand in front of the board, present her ideas, and defend her vision. As she stepped into the conference room, Ethan was already there, sitting at the head of the table, looking calm and collected as always. He didn't look nervous, didn't look like he was about to present the ideas of his life to a room full of powerful people. But then again, Ethan never looked nervous. "Good morning, Emily," he said, his voice warm but professional. "You ready?" She nodded, her stomach twisting in knots. "As ready as I'll ever be." Ethan gave her a small smile, the kind that made her chest tighten with an emotion she couldn't name. "You'll do great." He motioned for her to take the seat beside him. As she set her notes in front of her, she felt a wave of heat flood her cheeks. The room started to fill with the members of the board, all looking at her with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. She forced herself to focus, to breathe, to get through the first few minutes without sounding like a nervous wreck. Then, the presentation began. The first few minutes were a blur. She spoke about the target audience, the emotional angle, the innovative ways they could market the evergreen project. She spoke confidently, her voice stronger with each word, but there was always this undercurrent of fear that she couldn't shake. She couldn't help but wonder what Ethan was thinking, if he was doubting her the way she doubted herself. But then, as she walked them through the visuals, she felt something shift in the room. The tension in the air lightened, and the board members seemed to relax, nodding along as they listened. Ethan didn't interrupt her, didn't offer any corrections. He simply watched her, his eyes locked on hers, and she took that as a sign that she was doing okay. Halfway through, one of the board members raised a hand. "Emily," he said, "this is impressive. But what makes you think the community-focused approach will resonate with our customers?" "It's a risk." Emily swallowed, her heart pounding in her chest. She took a deep breath, her hands shaking just slightly as she pointed to the next slide. "Because we've seen shifts in consumer behavior. People want more than just products. They want to connect with brands that reflect their values. This project is more than just selling a product. It's about building a connection. We're not just trying to sell to them. We're trying to show them that we care." The room was silent for a beat, and she held her breath, waiting for their response. Finally, another board member spoke. "I think she's right," he said, his voice thoughtful. "The emotional appeal could be the key we need to differentiate ourselves in this market." A murmur of agreement spread through the room, and Emily felt the tension in her shoulders ease. She glanced at Ethan, whose gaze had softened, and he gave her the smallest nod of approval. She exhaled, a sense of calm washing over her as she continued with her presentation. As the meeting came to a close, she felt a weight lift off her chest. She had done it. She had not only survived, but succeeded. The board seemed pleased, and there was even some quiet applause. Ethan stood up as the meeting adjourned, and Emily couldn't help but feel like she had just won a battle. She had proven herself. She had proven to Ethan, to the board, and to herself that she belonged in that room. As she gathered her things and walked toward the door, Ethan fell into step beside her. "Well done, Emily," he said quietly. "You did exactly what I knew you could do." She smiled, her heart racing for a different reason now, a good reason. "Thank you, Ethan." He glanced at her, and there was something in his eyes, a flicker of something more than professional admiration. "This is just the beginning," he said. "Let's make sure we keep it going." She nodded, the weight of his words sinking in. She had just started to believe in herself, and now, with his support, the possibilities felt endless. In the days that followed the board presentation, everything in Emily's world seemed to shift in quiet but unmistakable ways. People around the office looked at her differently, not with pity or dismissal, but with something closer to respect. Her name started appearing in email threads she had never been included in before, and team leaders began asking for her input on projects she had once thought were far above her position. But the biggest change, the one she felt every single day, was Ethan. He always had a commanding presence, a quiet confidence that filled any room he walked into. But now there was something different in the way he interacted with her. It was subtle, almost invisible to anyone else, but unmistakable to her. The lingering glances, the way he positioned himself closer when they reviewed her project drafts, the quiet way he asked for her thoughts before offering his own. It felt like there was an electric thread between them, pulled tight and humming with. something that neither of them had dared to name. One afternoon, about a week after the presentation, Emily sat in her office cubicle, working on a new set of design refinements for the Evergreen project. Her focus was deep, her headphones resting around her neck as she reviewed a mood board she had been adjusting for hours. Her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Ethan. "Meet me on the 10th floor terrace. 5 minutes." Her heart skipped. The 10th floor terrace was rarely used by anyone except executives. It had a sweeping view of the city skyline, with tall glass panels that made the entire space feel suspended over the street below. She took a steadying breath and grabbed her notebook before heading to the elevator. When she stepped out onto the terrace, Ethan was already there, standing near the edge with his hands in his pockets, his suit jacket catching the soft breeze. He looked peaceful, thoughtful, like he had been waiting for this moment longer than 5 minutes. He turned when he heard her footsteps. "Emily." She swallowed, stepping closer. "You wanted to see me, sir?" He shook his head. "Just Ethan. We are not in a meeting." Her pulse fluttered at that. She waited for him to speak, unsure of what mood he was in. His expression was unreadable, a blend of seriousness and something softer beneath it. "I wanted to congratulate you again," he said. "The board has approved your direction. They want to move forward with your campaign." Her breath caught. "My campaign?" "Yes," he said. "Yours." She felt her throat tighten, emotion rising faster than she wanted. She managed a small, breathless laugh. "I never thought I would hear someone say those words." "Then let me say it clearly," Ethan replied, taking a step closer. "You earned this. You deserve it." For a moment the world felt impossibly still. The city noise below faded, the breeze softened, and all she could hear was her own heartbeat pounding in her chest. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You have no idea what that means to me." "I think I do," he answered. She looked down, trying to steady herself, but he stepped closer again, close enough that she could feel his presence, close enough that the air between them seemed to shift. "Emily," he said gently, "you underestimate yourself. You have been doing that since the day you walked into this company." "It is hard not to," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Everyone here is so talented. I always felt like I was trying to catch up." Ethan shook his head. "You do not need to catch up. You are already ahead." Her breath hitched. She tried to respond, but her voice caught in her throat. Ethan watched her carefully, as if weighing a decision. Finally he said, "There is something else." Her heart stalled. "What is it?" He hesitated, his jaw flexing slightly before he spoke. "The way things have changed between us," he said. "The way you look at me, the way you react when I come near you, it is not my imagination, is it?" Her breath stopped completely. Heat blossomed along her neck, her cheeks, her chest. She shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered. "It is not your imagination." A quiet exhale left him, something like relief, something like confirmation. He stepped even closer, and she felt the warmth of him wrap around her like a physical force. "Emily," he said softly, "I do not want you to think I am taking advantage of my position. If this is going to go any further, it has to be something you genuinely want." Her heartbeat thundered. "I do not know what this is yet," she said truthfully, "but I know I feel something. And I know it scares me." "It scares me too," he admitted. The honesty in his voice nearly unraveled her. She looked up at him, meeting his eyes fully for the first time since she had stepped onto the terrace. What she saw there made her knees weaken. It was not authority, not command, but vulnerability. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She did not. His fingers brushed her wrist, gentle, almost tentative, as if asking a question without speaking. "Emily," he murmured, "I do not want to cross any lines without your permission." She swallowed hard. "You are not." And as their hands slowly intertwined, she realized something she had not fully admitted to herself until now. She wanted this. She wanted him. And whatever came next, she knew her life was about to change forever. For a few days after that moment on the terrace, everything between them existed in a fragile but undeniable balance. A quiet electricity passed. Between them in meetings, in hallways, in the small moments when their hands brushed as they exchanged documents. Neither of them spoke openly about what had happened, but the shift was there, a soft gravity pulling them closer without either one taking the final step. Emily felt lighter than she had in years, hopeful in a way that scared her because it felt too good, too delicate. That fragile hope lasted until the following Monday morning when she walked into the office and noticed the sudden change in the atmosphere. Whispers followed her through the hallways, eyes flicking toward her and then away just as quickly, as if people were afraid of being caught staring. She tried to brush it off, but the tension grew thicker with every step. When she reached her desk, she found a printed email sitting on top of her keyboard. There was no name, no signature, just one line typed in bold black letters. Check your inbox before he destroys your career. Her chest tightened with cold dread. She opened her inbox with trembling hands, and there it was, an anonymous message sent to the entire executive team and the human resources department, with her copied at the bottom as if to twist the knife. The email claimed she had been receiving preferential treatment from Ethan, that she had manipulated him into advancing her project, and that her rapid rise had nothing to do with talent and everything to do with inappropriate behavior. The words felt like poison dripping off the screen. Each sentence was a different version of the same accusation, all of it designed to make her look like someone who had slept her way into a promotion. Her stomach twisted, her vision blurred. The worst part was not the lie itself, but knowing how fast rumors could spread in the corporate world. She had seen it destroy people. Before she could gather her breath, her phone buzzed with a message from operations. Human Resources wants to see you immediately. Her heart dropped. She walked into the Human Resources office with her pulse racing, feeling like a defendant walking into a courtroom. The director of Human Resources, a woman named Lauren who had always been polite but distant, looked at her with a neutral expression that only made Emily panic more. Emily, Lauren began. We received an email this morning involving serious allegations. We need to discuss it. Emily felt the heat rush to her face. It is not true. None of it is true. I would never. Lauren held up a hand to stop her. We are not accusing you of anything. We are simply gathering information. But the calmness in her tone did little to soothe the panic flooding Emily's chest. She answered every question honestly, but the more she spoke, the worse she felt. The situation was spiraling into something ugly that she had no control over. When the meeting ended, she stepped out into the hallway feeling hollow, as if someone had scooped out her confidence and left only fear behind. She did not even realize tears were slipping down her cheeks until she wiped them with the back of her hand. Then she heard footsteps behind her, steady and familiar, and she froze when she heard Ethan's voice. Emily, he said, his tone low and tense. I just heard what happened. Come with me. She turned to look at him, and the moment their eyes met, she knew one thing with painful clarity. Whatever this was, whatever they were becoming, someone in the company wanted to destroy it before it had a chance to begin. Come with me, Ethan repeated, his voice filled with urgency. He didn't give her a chance to protest before gently guiding her down the hallway, past the startled looks and whispered conversations. Emily's heart was still pounding in her chest, her thoughts a swirl of panic and confusion. This was not happening. She had worked so hard to prove herself, and now it felt like everything she had built was falling apart in front of her. She felt like a child again, small and powerless, caught in a situation she couldn't escape. They reached his office, and Ethan opened the door, gesturing for her to enter. Sit down, he said firmly. Emily did, her hands still shaking as she tried to steady her breathing. Ethan moved around to the other side of the desk, sitting across from her, his expression unreadable. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The tension in the room was suffocating. Then, slowly, Ethan leaned forward, his gaze never leaving hers. I don't care about the email, he said quietly. But you need to know that I am going to make this right. Emily blinked, her mind struggling to process his words. What do you mean? I mean that whoever is behind this is going to be exposed, he said, his voice low but resolute. And if they think they can ruin your career, they're wrong. I'm not going to let them get away with it. She felt a rush of relief flood through her, but it was quickly replaced by a sharp sting of guilt. I never asked for this, she whispered. I never wanted to cause trouble. Ethan's expression softened, and he stood up, moving to her side of the desk. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder, his touch warm and reassuring. Emily, you didn't cause anything, he said firmly. You're the one who's been working hard, who's been showing up, proving yourself day in and day out. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. She looked up at him, searching his face for any hint of doubt, but found none. You've got nothing to apologize for, he continued. And you're not alone in this. I'll make sure of it. Emily nodded slowly, trying to take in his words. She had been so scared, so certain that her moment of success had come and gone, that it was all just a fleeting dream. But Ethan's presence, his unwavering support, made her feel like she could stand tall again. He wasn't just her boss anymore. He was someone who believed in her, in a way that no one else ever had. Ethan stepped back, his eyes locked on hers. "We're going to handle this," he said, his voice steady and full of conviction. "And when this is over, you'll have earned your place here more than ever." Emily swallowed hard, the weight of his words sinking in. She wasn't sure how this would end, or if she would ever fully understand the lengths Ethan was willing to go to protect her. But in that moment, she knew one thing for certain. This was not the end of her journey. It was only the beginning. Days passed, and the storm that had threatened to destroy everything Emily had worked for slowly began to settle. Ethan's promise to make things right was not just empty words. He followed through. The person responsible for the malicious email was identified, and the truth came out. It turned out that someone within the company, jealous of Emily's rise, had tried to sabotage her career. But thanks to Ethan's quick action, everything was cleared up, and the person was quietly let go. Emily found herself back on track, her position solidified, her work recognized, and her confidence, though still fragile, growing stronger with each passing day. But it wasn't just her career that had changed, it was the way she viewed herself. She had never truly believed she deserved the success she had fought for, always feeling like an outsider, always questioning if she was enough. Now, she knew she was. And part of that realization came from the quiet moments with Ethan, the subtle, unspoken support he gave her every day. It was clear to everyone, especially to Emily, that their connection had deepened in ways neither of them had expected. Ethan, the enigmatic CEO, had become someone she could trust, someone she had come to rely on not just as a mentor, but as a partner. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Ethan invited Emily to the rooftop terrace for a drink. As they stood together, watching the city lights sparkle below them, he turned to her with a small smile. "You did it," he said quietly. "You proved them all wrong." She smiled back, a warmth spreading through her chest. "I couldn't have done it without you." He looked at her, his gaze softening. "You didn't need me to do it. You just needed to believe in yourself." Her heart fluttered at his words, but before she could respond, he took a step closer. "Emily," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "there's something I need to say." She looked up at him, her breath catching in her throat. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about this for a while," he said, his hand gently cupping her cheek. "And I can't keep pretending I don't feel it." Her pulse raced. "Feel what?" "I'm falling for you, Emily," he said, his words hanging in the air between them. Her heart skipped a beat. She had felt it too, the pull, the connection, the undeniable chemistry between them. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Ethan smiled softly, his thumb brushing her cheek. "I think you feel the same." And with that, he leaned in, his lips brushing against hers in a kiss that was soft at first, tentative, but full of promise. As they pulled away, Emily found herself breathless, her heart racing in a way it never had before. She smiled, her eyes locking with his. "I do feel the same," she whispered. And in that moment, she knew that everything had changed. Her career, her future, and most importantly, her heart. Together, they would face whatever came next, knowing they were stronger for it. This was just the beginning of their journey, and neither of them was ready to let go.